Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR2 video. I am making this video by request from a subscriber who wanted the stage 6 effects of the 488 Pista Spider. So here we go. Let's take a look at this car, its stage 6 effects, and discuss a little bit of its strengths and weaknesses. So first thing first, I always make videos with full fusion, mainly because without fusions, you can't really tune the car, and therefore you're not really going to get much of an effect from any kind of part installation until you go full fusion, which gives you the maximum potential. However, there is a effect from fusions, and each fusion has an effect of reducing or increasing the evo point. So it's worth noting that for every 10-15 evo points, you're going to lose a tenth, well, not a tenth, but a few hundredths of time from the performance. Usually fusions make up about 2 seconds of difference overall. Alright, stage 5 only, we are looking at this car's dyno. It's not really that slow as stage 5 actually. It's a pretty decent car at stage 5, 9.72. This is about normal for most tier 5 cars. One thing about this car is that it does want a little bit of nitrous, but stage 5 nitrous really don't give you much in way of duration, and therefore you're kind of stuck with a relatively short nitrous duration. Final drive, the car again can get to well over 300 miles per hour even with just this setting. I had it at 2.99, which seems to give the best, and here's 0-100. Okay, let's test run it at stage 5 only, get a baseline on the both the dyno and the runtime, and then we can look at individual stage 6 effects. Alright, starting off here, the way this car is driven, it spends a lot in the lower gear. So you want to get out of first at a reasonable speed, and then run through second and nitrous in third seems to do pretty well here. Again, when you're stage 5 only, it's not going to be the same as if you have stage 6s, but the maxed shift pattern can be used, or a variation thereof can be used based on your nitrous situation. Might be worth it to test it in 4th gear nitrous as well, but generally speaking, 3rd, 4th nitrous seems to do the best for this car. The other thing to note immediately is that it is running about a tenth under dyno. Well, that's good. It's not really excellent, but it's a good start as far as beating dyno by a little bit rather than being hard to actually run dyno with. So moving right along, let's take a look at individual stage 6 effects. I'm probably not going to run the car for every type of upgrade. This way it'll make us go through it a little bit quicker. However, we are going to test some combinations and see where things are. One thing is that this car does not start at very low performance points, but it does have very decent evo. However, that also means that unless we find a lower performance point level where it has high evo, it's not a low performance point high evo type car. It does need its upgrades to really do well. Okay, having put engine in, let's go ahead and take a look at the point where I can get the evo to without really touching on nitrous too much, because I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference point wise immediately. Leaving it at 2.9, 2.8 should be good. You're really playing mostly with final drive here because tire is going to want to stay at 0-100 as well. So given that, we get a time of 9.488. That is a nice drop from the 9.7 dyno. So this is definitely a decent improvement from 9.7. So you're going from 9.7 to 9.4. Alright, so that was engine. Let's go to turbo. Generally speaking, the expectation, of course, is that turbo won't do that much. Starting at 699, again, it jumps to 700. But notice there's very little change there, and that usually does not bode well for a lot of impact from the stage 6. Turbo also only holds one fusion, so it's not like the fusion is going to make a huge difference, but it will make some difference. There's no doubt about that. Here we go. It doesn't look like I'm getting much benefit out of tuning, and there you go, 9.639. Now 9.639 is still a drop, but rather marginal one from the 9.7 starting point. Okay. All right. So turbo, not very strong. Totally expected. Not a really much of a surprise there. Two fusions, intake. Again, can't expect a whole lot here because these are generally not the strong stage 6s. The numbers seem a little better, at least on the Evo side, for intake. So the hope is that it will beat. Not really. I mean, let's tune it. Let's see if I can't. That's really not any better, right? So even with the tuning, I'm not really getting much in way of substantial change here. So I think more or less we're stuck at 9.639. Okay, so they're pretty much on par with each other. Let's move on to the next one, which is now going to nitrous. Now, nitrous should be important for this car, mainly because it has such short duration when you don't have stage 6 nitrous. But once you have stage 6 nitrous, you get that extra duration, which I suspect this car is going to like. All right, so 5.7, 5.0 is where a optimal position for the time when you're fully maxed. So let's put it there and see if that'll work out for us. From the performance standpoint, the numbers are not outstanding, but it still drops to 9.4. Now, let's go ahead and run this and see if this one maintains at least the 1/10 dyno beating. With the extra duration on the nitrous, there's hope that it could beat that time by even a little more. But only way to find out is if we go ahead and run it. Okay. So I think I might have shifted out a second a little early. That probably may hurt us. But let's see what the final numbers are. So 9.4 is the dyno, 9.3, still about a tenth actually. 497 to 9384, so that didn't really change. It beat dyno by about a tenth. It beat dyno by about a tenth at stage 5 only as well. So nitrous helped with the time, right? It's a little bit similar to engine though. It's not that far off from engine. So that's not the big boy, I don't think. Let's see if this is going to be the big one because, yeah, that's going to be the big one. Body tend to be the big stage 6 for a lot of T5 cars. That was kind of expected, not surprising. Let's take a look here. Now, obviously, I lost that duration on nitrous, but doesn't mean body isn't going to push that Evo number up some more. Looks like 65 might be where it's at. 9.0. So that drops you from 9.7 to 9.0. That's a pretty substantial drop. Also worth a run. So let's go ahead and take a run on it. Now, if we beat that by a tenth, that is enough to get you into 8.9, high 8.9 range, right? So this will get you into the 8s with one stage 6. All right, let's go. Okay, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's pushing all the way to red line and through. What do we get for time? 8 point what? 8 point. Tell me it's oh my God, no! It failed to beat the 8.9 seconds. That could be my bad driving though. All right, so the expectation was about a tenth, and what we ended up with is about 800ths. Could be bad driving on my part. It could be this particular stage 6 does not trigger as much. It's worthwhile to maybe take a look, see if there's something I did wrong there. But let's go ahead and finish the stage 6 effects of the other ones because we don't want to spend too much time on any individual one yet. I can always go back when we start to do the combinations to play with that. All right, so body definitely is the big boy here. That's expected, and so far that's the best. But there are two more, and either one could turn out to be a big surprise for us. This looks like it's still a decent stage 6, but more likely to be near nitrous and engine level than body. because again, the Evo points here, but that is a decent jump in the overall performance point. Let's go ahead and play with it, see if I can get some more. Now it looks like top speed definitely went down to get the more final points of Evo, but that doesn't mean that we can't try to lower it a little bit. All right, let's 9.373. So this actually beats both nitrous and engine, and kind of comes out right now as the second place. So tire's pretty decent. Totally expected too, because this car is a tire spinner in first gear and partially in second gear, so having a little more tire naturally seems to help it. Okay, final one, transmission. Let's see what it does. That's a big jump, and that's a big negative jump. Okay, all right, so that's not good. A lot of performance point jump, but big negative jump in Evo isn't necessarily a good thing, but then maybe a tune will help move that some other way, or not in this case. Right, so this one is interesting in that the Stage 6 comes with quite a few fusions, and it actually turns out to be pretty bad. It really also counts for a lot of points here, but it negative almost 100 plus points here nets you barely better than the Stage 5 performance, but it's still a little better than both turbo and intake in that they were 9.6s, this is 9.5s. But overall, this seems like a drop in Evo performance rather than an increase. But let's run it to see how the effects are on actual runs and whether this will change the gap when it comes to beating Dyno, because Body kind of failed to beat it by a tenth. Although I didn't run every single one, I'll leave that to you guys to figure out. But let's go ahead and run this one. Alright, so I didn't get a perfect launch. That may hurt me here. But let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. Oh, not bad. 555 to 444. Right? So despite the loss in Evo points, this one did manage to still beat Dyno by that decent margin. Now, more importantly now, let's take a look at combinations. Obviously, starting at 699, you're not going to get a low performance point high Evo setting at this point. It's already too high performance points. So really what you're going to want to do is maximize your performance at a given performance point and maximize Evo. Now, transmission does seem to help get you a nice jump in overall dyno beating, but it's not enough to justify the loss in Evo points. In this case, obviously, the big one is here is body, which does add a few points here, but adds a lot of points there. And second to that would be tire, which also adds a little, but adds a decent amount of points here. Just between these two and maybe throwing in nitrous, you should be dropping your performance substantially. Now, nitrous, in the end, did help beat dyno by about a tenth, but from the standpoint of these three, these two being the top and this one being somewhere near engine, although, you know, it's kind of questionable whether I want to put nitrous in or engine in. Let's go ahead and use nitrous because that extra duration. Let's go ahead and see if this will push us substantially into the mid to low 8s. I don't think it's going to go low 8, but this should definitely get us into mid 8s. And let's see if I can't push the Evo points into the close to 2000. Not quite. It looks like 1950s. 8.4. So it went from a 9.7 to 8.4, which is a decent drop. Let's also take a look if it maintains that dyno beating margin, or it increased it or decreased it. Let's see what happens. So 110 seems like what this car can easily get as a dyno beating margin. The real question is, can it do more? Okay, so I'm going to do the basic deep good shifts. A little late on shift into 6, so that might have hurt me a little bit. Interesting. 8.46, 8.48. So it actually did not beat Dyno now with 3 stage 6s, even though it should be able to beat Dyno a little more. That's interesting, but let's try something different here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the top speed because it can easily get to 400 plus, right? What you're sacrificing here is a little bit of time here in theory on the dyno, but you're giving yourself a little higher top speed. Let's see if that can't get us back to at least beating that dyno by a tenth. If it still runs dyno, then obviously these 3 stage 6s in combination actually does not help you maintain a dyno beating setup. Okay, let's go here. Interesting. That changed the launch point. It possibly could have triggered a 0 RPM drop even, but it did definitely drop the RPMs to the middle. And it did now outperform its dyno by a little more, but not dramatically so. The other alternative, of course, is to go here, which gives us 8.5. This is even higher top speed, although I don't think you're going to reach it. So one more try before we try combination with some other stage 6s. Particularly, I may put trans back in because I saw that trans gave a decent dyno beating result, and take body out because body actually did not help us that much when testing for dyno beating result. 0 RPM drop. Now, that means we're losing the launch time right away, and that ran dyno, right? Let's take a look. If that ran close to dyno, then I now have a chance to beat dyno by some. If I launch it without getting a 0 RPM drop. Okay, but the question then is the earlier or later launch better for this? And if so, how much effect does it have overall on the ability of the car to maintain? No, still got 0 RPM drop. Let's try one more trick. So this is kind of one of the strategies of looking for a way to consistently beat dyno with a decent margin. Obviously, the lower final drive, the higher the grip, the more likely you get a 0 RPM drop, which affects the overall ability. Now, your way to get around that is to not launch so close to perfect. You can launch definitely here, or hopefully here will be okay too. Let's try the much earlier launch first. Okay, and then we'll use nitrous in third, like a normal launch, and see how this plays out overall. Now, you're topping out at the end at 6th rather than 7th, so that's not good because nitrous was not leveraged in the right area. Now I'm going to use nitrous in second since I know I'm going to run out in 6th, but I'm now going to try to launch late rather than early and see what the difference is in that case. Okay, here we go. Okay, oops, double clicked. All right, that's okay. Let's see what the overall effect is first. 392 mile per hour, and let's just mainly see where the numbers landed. Even worse. So this means that you're really not benefiting from the early or late launch for the most part with this car. You're really stuck looking at trying to keep that car launching at perfect to get the time. Okay, so a little bit more difficult than usual to try to get something here just by lowering final drive to change the performance of the car. Even though there's a 0 RPM drop, it's not enough to trigger a obvious dyno beating tune. Now, what about the other way? What about if we take this out, put trans in, maybe put engine in and take nitrous out. Let's put nitrous out. Okay, so this is a slightly different combo. We're losing the nitrous, but we're replacing it with engine, and now we added in transmission, which at least, even though it dropped Evo before, and it looks like it did again here as well, it seems to help when it comes to the margin for dyno beating because you're pushing a much more aggressive run with shorter gears. Okay, 9.009, definitely a lot slower too, right? We're looking at 8.4 before, now you're looking at 9.0, but the key here is, can I now use this car in a way 9.0 but beat Dyno, or 8.4 and not beat Dyno? That's going to be important. Okay, here we go. Let's try to launch perfect. Okay, notice the shift points all the way up near 5K, which probably is a result of that trans. And guess what? That trans does look like it still dropped you by a bit on the dyno. Now, you are beating dyno 8.8 something on a 9.0. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and go ahead and drop. I'm going to drop another stage 6 out, which is tire, okay, and just leave engine and trans, and let's see how this plays out. It's definitely going to make the car slower, there's no doubt about that, because tire is actually a pretty decent stage 6, but I'm just curious whether this is going to change the margin when it comes to the ability to push this car a little more. Right, so let's leave it at 9.325. Let's take one more run. And this will be the final combination run I'm going to do. Then we're going to put it to max. Let's get the max time. And then let's go ahead and take this car into live for 1 or 2 runs to kind of get a feel for it. And then we can draw some final conclusions on this car. Okay, so again, trans means quicker shift, but you top out quicker. Without tire though, at least for that run, I don't think I've come close to dyno. Interesting. 9.325, and I didn't get there where I expected. Alright, so turns out engine and trans doesn't do better than when we had tire in. Okay, so that means let's go ahead and max the car first. Let's do a run there, get a feel for where it is maxed, and then I'm going to try to find a setting which I think might be survivable in live. Okay, let's go ahead and put these in. Now, fully maxed, obviously, the tune changes yet again. One of the things is that this will be a 5.0. This, I believe, would be best somewhere around here. And that is still 0-100. That gives us a 7.946 dyno. And based on everything I've seen, beating that by a little bit seems definitely possible. Are you going to get 3/10 under? Probably not. But 1/10? Probably. Okay, again, I need to actually get this launch right. Okay, so once you have that stage 6 trans in, the shift point's all screwy, but car will drive just fine the way it is. Just ignore the shift points on that, 7.804. Probably not optimal. You should be able to get 7.7 something, but 7.9 to 7.804 isn't bad. So here's a little thing. Fully max, 7.9 is not a terrible place to be. The thing is that if you're at 7.9 dyno, the real question is, does the 713 put you with 7.9 cars? Or does it put you with 7.7, 7.6 cars? That's the issue, right? If I am in fact in a lobby full of 7.9, 8.0 cars, or that particular bracket range, I would do just fine. But if I'm placed with 7.7 cars mostly, then you're just going to lose after lose. So that's not fun. I'm going to jump in and out one more time because I don't really see a lot of cars in that lobby. Plus, I didn't see anybody I can challenge other than a swapper. Okay, let's see. Oh, same lobby, so I guess I'm stuck. Oh, here's another one of the similar cars. So this should make for an interesting race. Let's go ahead and race him. Question is whether I'm going to be able to outshift him, because if I can't, I'm going to lose. Same car. I would suspect that he's maxed, but we'll find out, right? The other thing to keep in mind is you now have a launch button, so it's going to require a launch button. Okay. Looks like I'm doing pretty good here. Slow down! Shouldn't have ran all out on the first race. This is not good for my average. Okay, 8.090, I did a 7.961. Now, fortunately, that's not a 7.8, so it really shouldn't seriously bump me or anything, but it definitely is questionable where I'm going to be after a few runs of doing this. I was hoping to see if I can beat him at around 8.0, set a slightly slower than Dyno initial run, or just outright lose so it doesn't affect my average too quick. But let's try again. All right, this time I'll let him have it because I don't really want to run too fast. He could probably do like a 7.9 run on that one. I didn't launch too well either. 8.017. So he's an 8.0 car. Maybe he's missing one stage 6. That's about where it would be. Let's try something that's going to be tougher. These guys, okay, at this level of upgrade, probably can easily run under 8, but they lobby pretty well too. But as they get closer to fully upgraded, they don't get as much of a lobby advantage. So let's see where this puts us. Okay, if I beat him, that's always a good thing. I'm ahead. I'm going to slow down. And I still win. This is good. This is good. F5 is a good limits test for this particular lobby. This may very well be a 8.0 lobby. He is a level 2 player. I mean, a Tempest 2 player. Probably not running as many fusions as I would expect because his top speed is not super fast, but it's also not super bad. So that's test 2. Let's find one more car. I probably would race him, but these guys with the here we go. The guys with a lot of the swap symbols, I don't want to waste their time because obviously I'm not here to swap. I'd rather just heads up race a few people and get a feel for the lobby. Now, this car can be down-tuned, but it wouldn't be this fast. So this is probably not a specifically down-tuned car for this lobby, although I have to really refresh my memory. It could be still down-tuned from 7.4. But let's find out. If I beat him, that tells me a lot. Okay? And I don't. I came close, but he's well ahead though, so 7.719. So he's probably tweaked to be in the 7.7s. I'm curious what his dyno is, of course. That is better than what I can do even if I run all out. So he can't lose against this car in this lobby. Right? So fully maxed is not that the car is impossible to be competitive against some things, but you're not going to be super competitive here. Again, even if you have an 8.0 dyno, you should really be able to reach 7.7 to be safe. What about a slower lobby? What if I move it down a bit? We know stage 5 only, obviously, you can do pretty well. You also know that, of course, things like body may not help you that much when it comes to beating dyno. Intake and turbo doesn't really help that much. Okay. One of the things is, can you get the car to do a full Evo drop dyno beating tune? That would require you to kind of drop a lot of these to nothing and watch for some kind of major change. I have a feeling with this car that won't be that easy. You probably, because you're not really losing enough here to justify the drop here. The main issue with that now is with the latest matchmaking, if you still maintain anything over 674 and your Evo points is like 1,000, it's not going to help you. Your lobby matchmaking is going to be so bad that it's not even worth doing. Okay, so one type of upgrade that always generates a lot of point drop is usually body, but again, I can't even seem to get. Now that is a huge drop, but that might be just a huge drop because I dropped off the good stuff here. Okay, let's see if what happens if we put the fourth. Oh, okay, third. Let's see if I see something going on here that's a legitimate major Evo drop. Nope, not really. See, it's only a little bit each part, so you're not really getting a huge change per part. Okay, so that's not worth it. Let's just put this back. Right, so I dropped some stage 6s to kind of make the car a little bit slower, and then left in some of the things that we saw before that allows it to kind of outrun Dyno. Let's see if nitrous tire, trans, and engine would give me a decent run in live or not. But first, let's see if we can't get it to a bracket edge. 8.866, not the best spot to be in, but 8.8 is not terrible either. 8.85 may not be as bad as I think. Now, question is whether this car will actually beat it. I'm not going to waste my time on the dyno to find out. Let's just go right into live. So this is a partial build, but again, it's still pretty high in performance points. So this is not necessarily going to make for a strong live racer because this is very high and that is not out of normal range, which means you don't have any advantage lobbying against cars at similar level of build. But if they have higher Evo, lower performance point by a margin, and they beat Dyno, you're going to be struggling to be competitive. But 8.8 is possible to be in a decent position. Don't forget, that's a late accelerating car, so it may very well catch up to me near the end, or not. Let me slow down. So at least I got that one. That's good, right? 8.7 on an 8.8, 9.0. All right, now, depending on which lobby I first got into, if it's a 9.0 lobby and I just ran 8.7, I'm going to get bumped. If this is an 8.8 lobby or 8.79 lobby and I ran 8.7, I'm okay. I should still stick around. Or he was trying to swap with me and just testing the waters. Who knows with these particular cars. Now this time he's on me. Let's see if he's going to outrun me. Very close. And he outruns me. So even though I ran 8.6 this time, oh, same times. Interesting. Okay, I ran 8.694, which is definitely under dyno of the 8.85. I still lost on basically a tie run and maybe lost by a little over 1/10 of a thousand or so. Okay, so that's one of the cars in here. Let's go ahead. Oh, these guys showed up. I may want to run slow. Oh, well, maybe, or not. Let's try him. But again, from a live racing standpoint, this car is not lobbied very well overall, and it's probably not going to be easy to keep it in a winning status for very long. And you have a disadvantage if you don't lobby well and you don't beat dyno by much. In the long run, the car won't be that strong. Final run, let's go ahead and take it and see if I can win this. But again, this is not a lobby control car, nor is it extremely strong in general lobby matchmaking. Okay, I can already see that he's right on me, and now he's past me, then I'm done. Because this car does not have a high top end. Once again, ran as hard as I can and still lost. 636, okay? All right, 600 LT Spider is usually very good in most lobbies. That could be a just a car that's just hard to beat. So this is actually a good car overall. All right, now let's go back and kind of finish up our discussion here with this car. Stage 6 effects are not too difficult to notice. It does beat dyno by a little bit. Driven properly, it may be able to beat it by a little more if you play with some of the other combination settings, but I don't think it's going to beat dyno by a whole lot. The other issue is that this is not a low performance point high evo car, so it does not get any other advantages in matchmaking, and therefore you know, when you're matched evenly with another car and they beat dyno by just a hair more, you're still going to lose. So the Pista Spider is not a bad car, but it's not a great car. Just something that I would probably hold off on building and just save my fusions for other Ferraris, which are more useful in live overall. But if it comes as an event car, of course, then you'll have to build it. Hey, I hope you liked the video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Anything I said or discussed that you have disagreement with or comments on, feel free to make them. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you like my channel and would like to get notifications when I put up new videos, please subscribe so you can get those notifications. And again, this is by request. And as always, thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.